Welcome to the TOTT582 Sport Broadcasting Module 2019-2020 academic year. So first of all, just to share why I'm doing this podcast. So there will be a podcast posted on YouTube and shared on my Beckett via one of the platforms I'm going to be discussing later, where I'm going to encapsulate or summarize everything that we have discussed together during that week, so in both lectures and seminars. So that's the main idea of the podcast. So what I have discussed in this first week of the module. So first of all, I covered the module handbook, the week by week structure, the learning outcomes, and the assessment. I'm gonna go back to it later on in this podcast. So the most important part in this first few minutes of the lecture that I had was to discuss my expectations or the expectations overall for the module. The main expectation that I have is that it's gonna be collaborative. And here, collaborative, I don't mean that I'm gonna collaborate with you and your learning, or you're gonna collaborate with the module. The idea is that we all are going to collaborate with the learning. So it's between me and you, and between you and you, and you and me. So we are one group, and we're going to build this learning together, this learning environment. And here we're going to be trialing a new platform. We are the first module at university using it, and hopefully we're going to have great fun using it. I'm going to talk about it later on. So, what was the first topic that I covered? I tried to show to you in the lecture how the relationship between media and sport evolved or solidified during the last 100 years. If we take both media and sport in isolated forms, one we can say that it's very physical. So sport is physical. There is the physical element to the sporting activity, to the contest, but also to viewers or fans. They are physically there in stadia supporting their club, their nation, their team, their athlete, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, we have media, and the word says it all already. It mediates physical relationships. So one is physical, the other one is metaphysical. So how come those two opposite words became indispensable to one another during the last 100 years? That is the main point that we're going to discuss throughout the module. So if we think that both were invented or part of the invented traditions of the 1800s, early 1900s, we can see how mass media used sport as a content for both of its main functions, two main functions. The first one, creating a sense of nation or a sense of imagined community, a community that speaks the same language, that has the same interests, that share the same passions. And secondly, to entertain. So media serves to entertain its readers, its viewers, its listeners. And here sport becomes one of the main content to entertain the masses. So sports become indispensable to the media for the media to exist. But at the same time, sports, the way we understand nowadays, or professional sport in particular, relies on the media to get this wider audience or viewers. So one needs the other to exist. That's a very strong symbiotic relationship. That was the first part of the lecture. And then I moved back to discuss the module. So what's the module about? And assessments. So we have one assessment in the module, which is an essay due in January. But as part of the assessment, there are 30% of your mark coming from two formative assessments, which are the video podcast that you're going to submit throughout the semester. So we have a video podcast mid-semester and a video podcast to be submitted by December. More information on the module handbook. So we're gonna do together those video podcasts, which are gonna help you and give a platform, a good platform to get a good grade on your final essay. Together with this, we have three different, I'll call, platforms that are going to support our learning environment, our collaborative learning environment. So first is the Thales Aspire reading list. So you probably noticed already, we have a QR code on the lecture slides. If you scan that QR code, it gets you to the reading list. All the readings are available online. Click there, you access, and you read. Simple as that. Second one, I have been curating tweets. So since last year, the old incarnation of this module, I have been posting tweets about topics that we are covering in the module. So all those tweets are under one hashtag, which is TOTT582, which is the module code. But now they are in a curated list, which you can find again by scanning the other QR code in your lecture slides. And finally, Thales Elevate, which is the new platform that we are trialing, which would allow us to collaborate and create this shared learning environment between me and you all, and between you all and myself. So hopefully you're gonna have great fun doing this on Thales Elevate and the other two platforms. And finally, the last few minutes of the lecture, I went and did a tour de force of the three main areas. So how the module is structured. Three areas. First area, the history of the relationship between media and sport. So how media and sport became indispensable to one another. Moreover, I went and covered all, not all, but most of the different medias that are associated with sport. So from the more traditional or legacy media as newspaper, magazines, radio, TV, to more novel media as social media, digital media, or even esports, if we believe and accept that esports, one, is a part of sports, and two, is an incarnation of mediated consumption of sports. Second main area are the questions of representation. So what we listen, we read, we view about different people, different sports, the world, to some extent influence the way we see the world. So what media says or don't say, to some extent, creates the world that we live in. So how media portray or represents three characteristics that I have chosen to cover in the module. So how do they portray gender difference, or do they portray or not? What about race ethnicity? What about disability sport? So those three areas we're going to cover in the second main topic on the module. And finally, PR and crisis management. If we accept that all sport organizations are operating within the media industry, just take an example. Most of them, they have a social media platform or multiple social media platforms. What happens if there is a crisis? How do they respond to that crisis? How do they manage this crisis? So that's the last topic, which is more strategic in its orientation, and I'm going to give you a good platform for your final and third year modules. So hope you're excited about the module. Hope you're excited to join this collaborative effort and create this learning environment that I and you all are part. Thank you, and see you all through these 12 weeks.